One of my clients a few months ago realized one of their employees just kind of stopped showing up to work, and it was one of the remote people that the manager was busy and didn't notice for a little over a week that this person just stopped checking in, stopped dealing with everything. The manager assumed that they were on some sort of vacation they wasn't where, whatever. And then when they reached out, there was no answer. Then they reached out again. There continued to be no answer until the point where like, oh wow, this person's just gone. And I remember being in the meeting where they were just sitting there, like trying to figure out who would do something like this and why. They were a good employee. They'd never had any issues per se. And what I mentioned to them was, what we're going to talk about here in the article that we're going to be looking at from Your Tango, in a climate, in a world where we're seeing layoffs happen all the time, where the question of company loyalty, which by the way, this client, I've never had any issue with any of that. However, people are hearing things on social media, and they're seeing things, and frankly, just around the cities that they live and work in, where people are being laid off. That's just happening. So if there's no company, if there is no perceived loyalty from the company, basically from owners with employees, I think it's an awful tall order that we should expect some level of loyalty from employees up to employers. And the social norm of providing, resignation, giving 2 weeks to your employer to help them figure out things, that's been slowly disappearing, with more and more people just quitting on the spot. And now we got folks that are simply just not even quitting. They just stopped showing up. All right. And so we're going to look at some of the reasons behind that, and really what you can do as a business owner to try to keep this from happening. And then also as an employee, what happens when you do this? And I'm, again, good, bad, or indifferent, there's things that occur. So again, for those that don't know, my name is Ryan Howe. I'm a business coach that works out of West Michigan and around the country. I come here live on YouTube pretty consistently every single day, just sharing information I share with my clients, and I hope to earn your subscription. So let's take a look at this. It's from Your Tango, and this popped up on my feed yesterday, as a matter of fact. I'm just getting to it today. I thought this was it's just something that folks are dealing with right now. And it's why some employees quietly just vanish without quitting. No email, no Slack, just gone. And what I've found in the vast majority of cases is these individuals, they're worried about coming up and saying something. For some reason, they're trying to avoid conflict. And that tends to be where it's at. There's more to it though, which we'll get to in a second. So I'd like to say I saw it coming, but I didn't. Jamie had been with me for a while, a team player, steady, dependable, and seemingly happy. Then one day he was sipping coffee in the break room, laughing at someone's story. The next, he was gone. No message, no handover, just an empty chair, and silence so thick it echoed. And this is what happens. Was it me? Had I pushed too hard, missed something? Was the culture more strained than I realized? And again, for managers, they take it personal when people up and quit. Business owners, for sure, they tend to take that personal for good reason, right? Now, colleagues told me not to worry about it, shrugged their shoulders, and called them flaky, unprofessional, and immature, which I don't necessarily disagree with at times, but I also do disagree with that characterization as a whole. Now, the words were temporary salve, but it didn't go anywhere. And of course, someone disappearing didn't happen often, but it happened enough. Pulled itself together and stopped blaming myself and started asking why. Here's the deal. Came to understand that when someone quietly vanishes from work without a word, it isn't always about the company or the way they were managed. It's about the individual at times. Again, it's about fear and psychological escape route. So we'll get back to this here in a second. One of the things that I'm talking with my clients about specifically is when one thing happens that doesn't necessarily mean anything. When we have multiple occurrences happening, now we've got a trend, and we should really start paying attention to what's going on here. And in the case of my client where this one thing happened, this is the first time that it happened to him, and we haven't had anything since, so it's kind of a one-off. But I've worked around places where folks just stopped showing up, and it was kind of contagious, where people just stopped. They were just ghosted everything, which had me bring in some folks to do an investigation to find out exactly what was going on. That these folks not only did not feel comfortable enough coming up to senior leadership with myself, they also didn't feel comfortable going even to HR or anyone else. And what ended up happening is places where I worked at, it was a manager. They were absolutely being disrespectful, rude, really putting their thumb down on folks, threatening to fire everybody all the time. It was something that I didn't see in person, obviously, but when I found out about it and I confronted the manager, guess what? They kind of admitted, yeah, it's how they did their stuff. So that manager stopped working for us right at that time and point. There wasn't even like a reprieve on that. We just kind of, because that wasn't something we were going to have in our culture. And again, nature of the business, it's a longer story about how it was able to fester. But when I got in there, we started cleaning house. And that's where I tend to see in a lot of these situations where they don't want to go through and resign and give the 2 weeks, because now they're going to have to answer the question of, well, why are you leaving us, from 30 different people? When in reality, if an employee wants to leave, it's, hey, let them leave, and hey, thank you. If you'd like to provide feedback on the way out, we would take it. However, we don't need everybody harassing them about it. And that's what they did. That's what I tend to see. All right. So it's always existed. Recent years has increased dramatically, and not just with the already employed people disappearing throughout the recruitment process as well. That's the other one, where we have people who have meetings set up. They're there to go, and they don't even show up for the interviews, right? We're seeing that a lot as well. And then, it's just, we're seeing that across here. So the figures for ghosting during recruitment are now so high that a recent survey found 41% of Gen Z job seekers have ghosted a potential employer during some stage of the recruitment process, and a staggering 34% have accepted but not appeared on their first day of work. Think about that. That's a third of people that have accepted and not even shown up with even a courtesy call back to the employers, which goes back to when we talk about social contract. That's something I talk about at length here on this program, where we have a social contract, which we have an agreement between owners and employees about the way the conduct is going to, everybody has to behave, right? You come in, I'm the employer, I'm going to tell you exactly what I need done. You're going to do it, then you get paid, right? That's the agreement. But we agree to that, and there's an understanding, an informal contract that you will come up because I'm scheduling you and I depend on this, without a contract, right? It's informal. Well, in this environment where people feel that they can be let go at any time for any reason, you're seeing folks that are saying, hey, I'm just going to dip because I found this other job and I can get started right away. Why do I even need to, communicate with my current employer or future, right? If you're in the interview process, when they could get rid of me anytime they wanted to anyways. And that's what's sitting in the back of people's minds right now when I talk to employees who have done this. There's no loyalty, is not something that they're willing to extend on to the corporate world, because they're not getting it, feeling it back towards them. All right. So, and this is what it's like. All that work, the planning, the hours, and in the end, nothing to show but an empty chair. We see this a lot. So this is the other aspect. So when I'm talking with, again, go check out the article, folks. We're going to kind of hit the key points when I'm coaching with my clients right now. Okay. When I'm talking to them, under no circumstance are you allowed to objectify that individual and dismiss them as, no work ethic, entitled, blah, 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 jerks, whatever you want to call it, lazy. We don't do that. What we want to do is go back to the way that we are presenting. Again, let's say it's in the interview piece, and we're trying to hire folks. We're going to take a look at our filter, and our filters that we have in our job, in our hiring process, to make sure it's very clear from the beginning that if you are this type of person, either for work ethic or training or skill or whatever happens to be culture wise, you won't do well here. So don't even apply. So we use this as a chance to go back and evaluate, again, our job funnel, our applicant funnel. When we have people that are currently working with us, that we definitely are going to take time and, reflect on this. Okay, what is it that kept Sally from feeling comfortable enough to come and let us know that she was going to leave us, that she was going to quit? And that's where a lot of the soul searching has to take place. And again, I lead my clients through this to make sure that we are having those deeper conversations, just asking ourselves, like, okay, what could we have done different, or why is it that these individuals didn't feel comfortable coming to us? And most of the time, and this is the key part on this, most of the time when that occurs, it's because they are worried about, how do I want to say this here? They do not want to have to explain themselves to their employer about why they're leaving. They should just be able to break up with us and be done with it. And for most people, and for some people, most people, they're able to say, hey, I'm resigning, I'm going, I found another job. I can give you 2 weeks, and then we have that negotiation. So give chance to figure it out. But for me, and some folks, the anxiety is too high. They just are not capable of having that discussion with you as the employer that they're quitting. So they just disappear. And so we look into that to try to figure it out. But there's also, man, they're probably just not that into you and didn't really, frankly, respect you enough to be able to make that call. Okay. So the link to this article is in the description. Be sure to go check it out. It's an interesting article. And what I've just found is that when you have this occur, it's just an opportunity for you to have a deeper discussion with your folks. Please do not call these folks and try to harass them and get in there with anything. If folks want to leave, they don't owe you a conversation on anything. And if they were the only person that knew how to do something in your company, then that is 100% your fault for for putting everything on one person. Okay. So, all right. Well, with that, I appreciate everybody who swung by today. It was good to see folks dropping by in the chat. I've got to get ready for another meeting here. Again, if you'd like to learn more about how I help businesses get ready to sell, and again, really just turn their companies into cash printing machines, there's a link down in the description for the Value Builder assessment. So if you're a business owner, go and take that assessment. It takes about 14 minutes. It's free, and it's going to give you your overall score and your readiness to sell your business. And what I find for the vast majority of people is that business owners, one, they overvalue their business, and two, they haven't done the work to actually build a business that can sell. And this assessment is going to give you insight into that thing, into how well your business is actually built and prepared to sell. All right.